in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the musician journalist. It's the one and only Robert Rotifer, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Has had a long and interesting life in music with lots of current projects that are happening now and into the next year. So this is the interview, so you're going to find out more about all those in this fascinating chat. Which there was one little moment where the internet does drop, but it's fine, just don't worry about it anyway. So look, after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Robert, it's over to you.
I was born in Vienna in 1969, so I grew up in the Austrian 70s that were actually it was a bit like Austria had a completely social democratic 70s where everything was progress and, it had quite a progressive government at the time. And I was really lucky and privileged to grow up there at that time. And what it didn't have was proper pop culture. It sort of only started to grow into its own pop culture. And that was very much based on Viennese dialect and was it had a sort of folksy sort of sound. And so I didn't fancy that much. And my parents were lefties who were listening to sort of serious, like music from the Spanish Civil War or stuff like that, or Pete Seeger.
Right.
Yeah, not bad stuff at all, but not pop.
No, there was no pop.
But they did have some. I'm getting to the point. They did have the Blue and the Red Beatles albums, and the two compilations. Do you remember?
Very well. Yes, there was the early years and the slightly latter years and the excitement.
Exactly, and so I was completely just besotted with those as a child, and then I dug deeper and deeper into the Beatles, really. And from that, I got into the other parts of the 60s. So because of the Beatles, I was very 60s fixated, even as an early teenager. And I hated the sounds of I was 12 in 1982, and all the big drums and the synths, the DX7 sounds and so on, I didn't like. And you didn't get to hear much Joy Division on Austrian radio. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So it was either 80s mainstream pop or older music. And so I became a bit of a 60s fetishist and then went into the modern psychedelic scene and so on. I got to be, the usual trajectory, where at the most contemporary stuff that I would have listened to would have been stuff like Dukes of Stratosphere or something,
right.
Things that were kind of retro in their time already. But I was mostly interested in details about bands like it went from, I have to be honest here, from teenage excitement of say The Who or whatever to things like The Small Faces, then The Creation, and it was this The Action and so on, then more into this kind of R&B stuff and so on. And at the same time, there were also things like the Smiths coming in as well, which even as a 60s fixated teenager, I kind of dug. I was into.
Yes, well, you were 13 when...
I have to say, yes. I was very much into Billy Bragg. Yeah, I have to admit that as well. I find I was really, because I was a lefty myself as well, around the mid-'80s, I was really into Billy Bragg as well.
Well, yes.
Things that I find a little bit grating to listen to now. Yeah,
but did you find
it had its worth?
Well, it did. But did you find with Billy Bragg, because I was the sort of one of those lefties as well during the 80s. So you bought the package. But with Billy Bragg, I always had to sort of confess, not out loud, but to, my cat, that really it was his kind of relationship songs I quite liked. All the ones about being part of the union sort of would bore the
Exactly.
pants, but the relationship songs were like great. And I can vaguely still listen to them and think there was sincerity, but even back in the 80s, it's like, oh, I don't really care about your politics, Billy. It's like you're part of it. Whereas I don't know if you then got into people like there was like with Billy Bragg, you had that poster and you had Michel Schott, and then the Redskins came along. But that was another.
Absolutely. So there's a few links there, isn't there? That with Billy Bragg, you had this Workers' Playtime album, I think it was,
yes.
and then it was the
Taxman one,
yellow talking with the Taxman, exactly.
About poetry.
I'm getting it wrong. Talking with the Taxman about poetry. That was the first properly musically interesting one, and then came the one with the yellow cover. I feel like such an idiot now. I can't believe that I don't remember what it's called. Was that Workers' Playtime with the Waiting for the Great Leap Forwards?
Yes, and
big anthemic.
Yeah, so actually the first one was it was Life's Alright with Spy versus Spy.
His relationship with Mary.
Right, but the first album
was the one before. Yeah.
So the first album was
that's the one with Richard and stuff, isn't it?
So the first album was Life's a Riot, and that features the song the Milkman of Human Kindness and A New England. And obviously those two songs were great. And then we had Brewing Up with Billy Bragg as well, which was, God knows.
You're kind of breaking up here now. Sorry,
Yes, sorry. I know. We did break up a little bit there. But then Talking with the Taxman came out in... that was the one which was in 1986, and that was the one, Greetings to the New Brunette.
I used to be able to play all those songs on the guitar, all of them.
Well, I don't blame you. Yes. Well, that was also had Levi Stubbs' Tears.
You've broken up again. Do you know what I'm going to do in order to just stop us breaking up? I'm going to close close that. I'm going to close down the other browser here as well.
Right.
Away you go. Then off go the emails. Out go the emails.
Yes.
Get rid of Apple Music. Sorry about that, but you will be able to edit that, won't you?
Yes. Always.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then Windows closed, left, right, and center.
Brilliant.
Okay.
This is quality chat.
So let's hope it's going to be better now. It sounds better already, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It's
Okay.
So going back to the Billy Bragg...
I used to be able to play all those Billy Bragg songs on the guitar. And I remember talking to him after a gig in Vienna, and he was extremely generous, extremely nice. And he sent me a record. You mentioned the Redskins. He sent me this record called Wake Up, which was a benefit for the striking miners, which had the Redskins playing Levi Stubbs' Tears on it.
Oh, yes.
In a live version. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, I was listening to that quite recently, actually. I was quite excited by...
Oh, really?
Yes, because actually there was a YouTube clip of the Redskins playing their last ever gig somewhere in Germany, I think.
That is the Alabama Halle, isn't it, in Munich?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Well, it was there. It said on this YouTube clip, this is the last time they played, and they did that version. And to be honest, I was like quite excited by it, really. So,
it is. It's not bad, is it? It's like, okay, let's talk about this. This is good. Billy Bragg. I was growing up in Vienna, as I said to you. So to me, all of this was exotic. The miners' strike from afar seemed like proper proletarian uprising. It seemed to be something extremely, I know this sounds wrong, but it seemed really romantic to us because we had nothing like this. So this whole dichotomy between Thatcher and the workers, it had a romantic appeal, let's be honest about this, to a teenager far away. And I liked all the, the accents. I liked the way people say. I liked all the rhetoric, things that seem a little bit clumsy now to me because I've lived so long in the UK, seemed really exciting at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so it was an entry point for me into British culture, and it was the point where I then started to, I'd been to the UK in 1982 and 1984 as a 12 and a 14-year-old, and I'd got sort of like a little bit of a taste of what it was like, and then that was even made me fall in love with it even more. But the indie thing, because this show is called C86,
Yes.
the indie thing, yeah, I was not so aware of that at the time, to be honest. So I was aware of the Smiths and I was aware of the House Martins, but that's not, there was one radio show that would have played stuff like The Wedding Present or whatever, but that wasn't so much my scene at the time. I grew into that a little bit later, that sort of stuff.
Yes. So just on the young formative years then, did you have any brothers or sisters that gave you any kind of musical direction? You said your parents were into sort
Well,
of revolutionary Spanish folk
yeah,
music and Pete
I was.
Seeger.
Yeah, exactly. And I was my sister and I. My sister's older than 2.5 years older than me, and we were sort of in competition when I was small about who had knew more about the Beatles. So
Right.
she was a big McCartney fan, and which is seems cooler now than it seemed at the time. It was considered naff to be a McCartney fan at the time, if you
Well,
remember.
yeah. I mean, there wasn't a lot. I mean, my brother had a copy of Band on the Run, which did have some good hits, but then he also had several John Lennon albums, which was Walls and
Yeah,
Bridges
I
and
had.
Shaved Fish or something, I think. And they
Yeah,
just had
yeah,
so many
well,
good songs on it that, I was quite amazed. There was a song,
yes, yeah,
Watching the Wheels,
yes.
which was just one of my favorites. And yeah, I was just kind of mesmerized by John Lennon. And also the gatefold sleeve that sort of folded out, which was very interesting with him with all these sunglasses on his face. So, yes, it was quite an interest. And also, we had the Beatles films. I don't know if you ever
Yeah,
watched
yeah.
any of those, but they also seemed very exciting as
Of course
well.
we did. Of course. We watched terrible dubbed versions of those. So anyway, so I had to. Pop music was where I learned my English, and I always knew I wanted to go there. And in the end, I ended up going there. But in the end, I became, you know, being a musician, being interested in music I was interested in Vienna meant that you definitely could make a living of it, and you were kind of dreaming of going to England at the
Yeah.
time back then. This has changed a bit now, but so I then I became, yeah, it has changed, but I became, well, more of that later. But I became um, a music journalist when I got the offer about a lot of stuff. And then when that folded, I sort of needed to make money and ended up working for the radio. And I still
Right.
do. I still work for Austrian radio. Still got a show every fortnight. Yeah.
Yes, it's very
And
exciting. Did
and
you? I mean,
so
just to,
so
s- just
that
to,
that
I
yeah.
was just going to say, just going slightly pausing because you were 12 in 1982-ish. I mean, did you? I know it's
Yeah.
funny. Everybody, you know what I'm going to say, aren't you? Were you excited then with Ultravox? Did that slightly make you think, God, I live in a cool place?
I didn't know what you were going to say at all. I didn't know. Yeah. But of course, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, was I excited about? I was not so. Well, my sister was excited about Ultravox. Uh, and of course, that Vienna was a big hit. But I'll tell you what happened in 1982 was. Could it have been 1982 or would it have been 1981? At least I was very young. But undertones the Undertones played one of their last gigs in complete in the original lineup
Right.
in the center of Vienna, a free gig as part of the opening of the Vienna Festival. And there was a local band who were kind of, they had a very kind of actionist sort of stage show with lots of, naked people on stage and so on. It was all quite nuts. And I was really young, and then the Undertones came on, and I have to say I've still got that image in my head of that first proper big gig that I saw, and I think I was really lucky because that was an amazing gig. It was the young Fergal Sharkey and so on.
Yes.
It really, it was an
Amazing.
amazing presence. Yeah.
So during the 80s then, did you start playing music? Did you get a musical instrument
Yeah.
and start sort of strumming and sort of, covering numbers or try? You said you had the Billy Bragg sort of back catalogue sorted out.
Yeah,
Did you?
I had that, but I also, I also knew all of the '60s stuff inside out. I started playing seriously at the age of 10 or something, and then got my first electric guitar at 14, and played in bands all the time. None of whom anyone can remember now, but it was really hard to find people in Vienna who liked the sort of music that I liked. And I then ended up playing in a sort of, moddy power pop soul band that were called the Losers.
Oh,
And
yes.
they were kind of 2 or 3 years older than me. And that sort of meant that I sort of rose in the social. So that was one status kind of thing, because they were all like 21 and I was 18 or something like that. And yeah, so I played with them, and then that kind of broke apart, and then I started playing solo. Then I had some other bands, and we yeah, it was locally successful.
But you put
Like
out 2 releases, didn't you, with the
as it
Losers?
there were some releases, yeah, but none of all the records that we made were before I joined the band. But I don't know if it's the same band that you mean that I mean. There may have been another band by the same name, because I can't imagine you having heard them.
Well, there was
But yeah, I then
on discography, it does mention that you were there
yes,
from
yes,
85 to 90, then did a
yeah,
reunion
yeah.
in
That's
2015.
Oh, that's very funny. Yeah, well, it's not a real proper reunion. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's just old blokes playing together. But yeah, sorry, I'm being dismissive, but it really wasn't much. But the thing is, I had a band in the '90s that were kind of locally successful. And we were called the Electric Eels, not knowing that there had been another band called the Electric Eels, the seminal punk band from,
Yes.
Ohio, I think. And we were perceived as being, sorry, this sounds ridiculous, Austrian Britpop. So, and this just tells you about, people had no vocabulary for the sort of stuff I was trying to make. Anyway, so I moved to the UK in 1997, found myself having interviewed lots of British musicians over the years, living in a country where I realized, hang on, I can't actually write lyrics in this language, because now that I'm here, I realize my language isn't up to scratch. I can't properly write lyrics in this language. I've been kidding myself for too long. So I stopped writing songs for about 2 or 3 years, until I finally felt I was at the level where I could start again. And that's when I started to make music again, around 2000. And I started putting out albums that weirdly I made in Britain, but that came out mostly in Austria, where I was known. Do you see
Right.
what I mean? And I
Yes.
played a few gigs in Britain. And what happened then, I don't know if, you stop me if this is too much,
No.
but what happened then was, around the turn of the millennium, I kept interviewing musicians for German-speaking media, and around the turn of the millennium, one of the musicians I interviewed, who I really liked, whose stuff I really liked, was Darren Hayman. Because he had Hefner going on.
Yes.
And also, I was very big friends with, still am, with Tajinder from Corner Shop.
Oh, yes.
And so I got to be friends with musicians. And after a while, I got to play with some of them. And that's sort of like I had a late entry into the scene of British musicians, actually playing with them, not just interviewing them, and growing into that.
God, that's fantastic.
And I think
with your writing, being a journalist, had you gone to college, university to sort of learn to be a writer or a journalist at this stage?
I was pretending to be self-taught. I was at university, but I broke off university for this work.
Did you go to Vienna? Was that in Vienna?
Vienna, but at the time, this is so different from Britain. At the time, you went to university when you felt like it, and all they wanted to see is whether you were collecting, exams as you should. But I didn't, and I just ended. Someone said, "Don't you want to write for this paper?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd rather do that." So it was like that. And, with hindsight, I wish I'd have finished university, but I didn't.
Right.
But, I used it as a place to meet people socially.
Yes.
And to hang out with other people who made music.
So it was the sort of the Britpop period, or that time when you were particularly ferociously interviewing, writing, and publishing.
Yeah.
So what was your sort of general take on Britpop? Was that the period that you look back? Do you still think it was a great moment?
Well, it was. Again, if you're not from, let me try to explain. I would say, for example, I was the first journalist in Austria, definitely, possibly also in the German speaking world, who interviewed Blur in 93, I think.
Right, the early years.
Yeah, and I had a right old argument with them. So it was less an interview than a kind of more like a fight.
Good.
But it was exciting. It was really good. It made for good radio and good copy, and so it was like, and I have to say that was around the time of the Modern Life is Rubbish album. I have to say I still like that. I still rate that album. Even from Austria, I thought Park Life was a little bit obvious, even though I liked a lot of the songs on it. But what I wanted to say is that this thing, you write a song about the National Lottery and you call it Could Be You, is too on the nose for me now. And I understand why people like, say, Tajinder were saying, sorry, I don't know if I can say this out loud now, but I think they didn't rate it that much, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, as someone from Austria, I just loved all of this. What I didn't like from the off was Oasis. That's where I drew the line.
Right.
I didn't like the masculine swagger, and I didn't like. I really thought when Britpop started, I thought what was great about it was with Pulp, and also in a way with Blur, with Elastica and so on, is you sort of had the feeling that it could be there could be something like a progressive consensus here, and people, girls could be boys and boys could be girls. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That people could be effeminate and people could be kind of glamorous a bit. It felt a bit like, partly it felt like, what I'd liked about the mod thing was the dressing up and the flamboyance of it. What I didn't like about it was the blokishness about it. And with Britpop, it seemed to have a route to flamboyance, and then when Oasis came along, it went blokish.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a lad culture, really, wasn't there?
It was totally, and it annoyed the hell out of me. And I know that Blur seemed to be part of the lad culture as well, or were portrayed as such, but I always thought they were slightly different from that. Graham at least was different, and I did get to know him later on better.
Yeah.
And he's very different from the way they were portrayed,
So actually, what was
at the
your
time. But anyway, yeah.
I was going to say, what was how did you manage to get into an argument with Blur, by the way, at the 8, 9? What was the thing that slightly wound them up?
It was me. I was asking them. I said, "This is all. I like the music and everything, but this whole Union Jack waving. I mean, they didn't wave Union Jacks, but they had this promo picture with a Great Dane and a Union Jack in the background, I think, and it had British Image Mark One on the background. And, there was this Union Jack stuff going on, and I said, isn't this a bit nationalist, all this stuff? And I think Damon at the time, he said, "Oh, that's rich coming from someone coming from the place where Hitler was born," and that was obviously completely out of order. Also because he didn't know my family history, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was that kind of little argument, and I think I wasn't completely wrong. I think I had a bit of a point. Do you remember that was the time also just after the Morrissey thing, the Union Jack waving thing with Morrissey?
Yeah, there was
in Finsbury Park.
Well, there was also a couple of songs that Morrissey did, especially. Which were really awkward, and there were some great tracks
National
on
Front Disco and Bengalian Platforms.
It's the latter, the National Front Disco, with produced by Mick Ronson, David Bowie. It's kind of all right, but the Bengalian Platforms is a really difficult one.
Yeah.
It's just you can't it's just it's kind of nasty, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas the other National Front Disco, it's kind of all right, but I mean,
it depends on how you read it in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, but there was like a bit of okay, that's just all right, but yeah, there was little flashes, and things started to escalate a little bit actually on that front. It was very strange, Being a Morrissey and Smiths fan, there was like moments where it just felt a bit uncomfortable, but you sort of just let it ride, really, didn't you?
Yeah, there was this thing, obviously around Blur, where they wanted to be different from sort of the American hegemony, and you could see that point. And I was Anglophile enough to go along with all that, but of course, yeah, it's all difficult. I mean, I'm feeling like I'm reheating old arguments now that are kind of boring when you compare with what we have to deal with now.
Well, quite. I mean, in the 80s do seem very quaint, even though at the time we thought it was terrible.
Well, Thatcher did seem like some of the worst that could ever happen.
Yes,
and sort of little did we know. Yeah, yeah.
I know. So I was just curious on that right in front. So then we got into God, where did we get to actually? We got into you did Electric Eels
now, aren't we? Yeah, because I was also into what I also liked all the shoegaze stuff. I did like quite a bit of that. But I was then because I started to DJ for my radio show in regularly. I started working radio in '93, and then exciting things like, okay, let's talk about other things like Stereolab. In what was that? That would have been early '90s, no?
Yeah, definitely. There was, because they had Dave, who was in the had been in the Wolfhounds, was in Stereolab, wasn't he?
Oh well, Dave was in Moonshake, whereas Tim Gain was in Stereolab, and who had been in Oh God, I feel like an idiot. What Mike with Disney? No. But this is really embarrassing stuff. I shouldn't know my stuff. But Dave Callahan was definitely in Moonshake, and
O'Hagan had been in Micro Disney, hadn't he?
yes, that's right. And Tim Gain had been in.
Tim Gain had been in. Was it? He had been in. Oh my
this
God.
is really this can only be explained with
McCarthy. He'd been in McCarthy.
McCarthy, that's it.
So,
God,
yes.
The embarrassment. I apologize to everyone. So yeah, but I found Stereolab very exciting, and this was the first time I remember seeing them live and hearing those crowd rocky grooves come together, and that really seemed like it was, of course, retro futuristic, but it seemed I'd never seen a band do that like this.
Yes.
So that was really exciting. I also remember going to see the Roller Coaster tour in '92, which was Blur with My Bloody Valentine and Dinosaur Jr. And Dinosaur Jr. seemed far too much like a rock band to me. I still had a very anti-rockist kind of stance, which I think is not a bad thing. And My Bloody Valentine was just so fantastically loud. That was quite impressive.
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that whole I suppose I saw them. I think it was '89, and then again when they did Loveless. And they were just, and there was a scene, there was a North London scene, wasn't there, with My Bloody Valentine, that had people like Silverfish and the Faith Healers. And I suppose there was a bit of a scene with Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine, had been in various bands in the 80s.
Yeah.
But then they became huge in that 90s time. And again, they were slightly unusual, I suppose. And two chaps and a drum machine, which
The Only Living Boy in New Cross, that was a good song. I felt, and and at the same time, through hanging out with Tajinder and Corner Shop, who I really liked, even from in the days of Fort Cortina thing onwards, which people claimed was just noise, but it wasn't. It was fantastic, and there was this whole Ouija lot, and the Riot Girl scene.
Oh, Huggy Bear. Yes, I know. Ouija was.
And God, I really feel there's a lot of things that there was one band that I remember now, but I can't.
What did they? What was the little?
They had a singer called Angeli, who then had a solo career later on. Mambo Taxi. There you go. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Mambo Taxi. Yes.
Yes. So I like that scene as well. And that definitely wasn't Britpop. Also, obviously, always liked the Glasgow scene. I loved BMX Bandits, Teenage Fan Club, obviously.
What about the Pastels?
The Pastels I adored. I actually went to Glasgow to interview all of these people in 1992 and 93 for Austrian TV. So I had Stephen Pastel show me around and interviewed them on their Speedway track. At the time, they sponsored a Speedway rider. I don't know if you remember that.
No, I didn't.
He wore the full kit with the Pastels written on it. I mean, it's amazing. And Stephen even had them open the 13th Note in the afternoon, and we filmed the Pastels and Teenage Fan Club on stage together. So it was Norman and Jerry, I think, and the Pastels playing together. And then I interviewed BMX Bandits, and then Stephen took me to this rehearsal place, and he showed me around, and there was this band called Lungleg, a totally new band at the time. And it was only later that I understood that Alex of Franz Ferdinand was in Lungleg. So it all
came you pieced
together.
It together, didn't you?
Pieced it together in the end, yeah. but yeah, so I was really I adored the also Captain America / Eugenius. I really like the Glasgow scene. Weren't
Yes.
Whiteout also Glasgow? I think they were.
Well, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I can't remember where the shop assistants. There was a shop assistant, Jasmine,
Yeah.
Jasmine Minks, the Orchids, weren't there? That was
Yes,
and the Fuzz.
and
Was it Fuzz Bombs as well? So they
yeah,
were
I still like the Jim Shepard's just done an amazing album.
well, yes.
Um, the Pillars of Creation uh, is nom de guerre at the moment, isn't it?
Well,
And
yes.
he's just done this really good concept album. Yeah, so a lot of the people I ended up playing with later on, I have to be honest, didn't know so much at the time. I ended up playing quite a bit with Pete Astor, but missed the loft first time round. Yes, others like that. I was aware of Tallulah Gosh, but and Heavenly. I remember I did play Heavenly on my radio show.
Yeah. Well, they've
But
been very prolific, dear old Amelia Fletcher. So,
yeah,
so the 90s was your writing and your Britpop period. The O years then, was that more, you were sort of bringing out some albums at this stage, weren't you? Or A Different Cup of Fish was your,
yeah, yeah. I'm not surprised you've read about this, obviously. Yeah, I called it A Different Cup of Fish because the guy who ran a pizza place downstairs, in the place where I lived in London, who was an Iraqi Kurd. He had an American wife, and this was before September 11th. And he said, before all the Iraq invasion and everything, and he said, I said, what's it like being an Iraqi with an American wife? And he said, well, I don't like the regime, but when you meet the person, it's a different cup of fish. And I said, I thought I'm having that. That sounded good. And it was, people like Tajinder or friends that I had said, this is actually, these songs are okay. And they kind of gave me license to write in English. But I still, I hardly played any gigs in London. It was like more, I would make a record and then tour in Austria or Germany.
right.
And it took a while till I gathered the courage to play in Britain as well. And like I said, it was through getting to know people like Darren and playing with him as well. The first record that I did that actually came out properly in Britain was a record called The Hosting Couple. Well, by that time, I'd called the band Rotifer, just without the Robert.
Right.
And,
Rotifer.
and
Yeah.
at that time, I'd moved to Canterbury, and I'd got to know Ian Button, do you know Ian Button?
No,
Who's,
Ian.
yeah.
Well, perhaps, wait a minute. Ian
Well,
Button.
I'll bring you up to speed on Ian. Ian plays in all the bands that Rob and Amelia do these days. Like he plays in Swansea Sound, he plays in the new version of Heavenly. He also plays with Alan Crockford of the Prisoners in the Penrose Web.
Right.
So the Prisoners were a band that I idolized as a teenager, and I'm in the live version of the Penrose Web, so I'm actually playing with an actual prisoner, which is actually exciting for me. And then he used to have this thing called Paper Nut Cambridge, which you may have heard of, and he used to play in the 80s in a band called Thrashing Doves. Do you remember them?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
God, he's got a hell of a CV, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he played in the most famous band he played in was Death in Vegas, but he was a guitarist there. And then he started to play drums, and so he played drums for me and Darren from Hefner, who was not in Hefner anymore by that time, played the bass with me. And at that time, do you remember Edwin was recovering from his stroke? Edwin
Yeah.
Collins, and I interviewed Edwin, and we were talking about the new label he was starting. And so Grace, his wife, suggested that they could put out. Well, I told them, sorry, I'm telling this the wrong way around. I had made a record in France with Darren and Ian at Reckless Eric's house.
Right.
Because I haven't mentioned Reckless Eric. I've been friends with Reckless Eric since the late 80s. And because I interviewed him and he liked me, and we sort of never lost touch. So I decided, Eric said he didn't like the way my record sounded. So I said, I'm going to produce you. And so I took that, offer, was extremely chuffed with that, and went to France to his house. And he was already with Amy Rigby at that time. So we stayed at their house for a week, Ian and Darren and I, and recorded this album, which then, that's the way I should have told it, which then ended up on Edwin Collins' label, AED Records.
Right, the hosting couple.
The hosting couple, that's the one, yeah. And that was sort of, I don't know, that was so sort of overlooked, not by everyone, but
You had a great band. You had Darren
It
on
was-
bass, you had Ian on drums. I mean, this
Yes.
is, a
No,
quality-
it was a great sounding band as well, and yeah, but the record didn't do much like sales wise, but it meant that some people got to hear me. And what also happened was that on one of those records, before I'd made a tribute song to an Austrian architect. This is a bit arcane. She was the first female Austrian, one of the first female Austrian architects, and she created the first built-in kitchen, which was called the Frankfurt Kitchen, and her name was wonderfully Margarete Schütte-Lihotzky. She was a friend of my grandmother's, who was an old communist Jew, and and they were both in the resistance during the Nazi period. That's how I knew about her. And so I made this tribute song to her, and I made a video. I draw and I paint.
Yes.
So I made a video, and all of a sudden I get this email from MoMA in New York, a Museum of Modern Art, saying, we've seen your video, and we'd like to exhibit it as part of our exhibition about art and kitchens. And so that happened too. So I had this, I sort of had this wind all of a sudden where I, through luck, I suppose, they came across the video on YouTube, which was fairly new at the time. And I ended up going to New York and playing at the Museum of Modern Art.
My God,
And then
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So just go back to that, just because there was a lot of detail there. This was what was the year this? What was the year this came out?
So this would have been it came out in 2008 or 9 on an album number called Coach Number 12 of 11, and the song, that video and the exhibition and all of that happened in around 2010, I think. So it was just before the hosting couple.
Right, so I've got
I did get a response.
But before the hosting couple, you had the Children on the Hill album.
Yeah.
Coach number 12 of 11.
Yeah.
Right, and this is a track called the Frankfurt Kitchen.
The Frankfurt Kitchen, yeah.
Yeah, Frankfurt, sorry.
Yes. And that was recorded at, and that's got Darren playing the synth at the end of it, and it was recorded at Brian O'Shaughnessy's place. So there you get into, by that time, do you know Brian O'Shaughnessy? He at his place, all sorts of people recorded at that little studio in Walthamstow. It was called Bark Studios.
Studios.
Yeah, and it had, St. Etienne recorded there, and I think Primal Scream recorded there at one point. But lots of bands.
Yeah.
So I mean, what happened was that I started to get to know people around who were in bands more as a musician. And I started to play on other people's records as well. Some of Darren's records I ended up on.
Yeah, well, quite. So this is your
Yeah.
sort of, your creative moment has really sort of given you a lot of, yes, access into other people at this point.
Yeah, and also I had got to know by that time. I had got to know, how should I explain this? Darren told me about. Do you know John Howard? Does he mean something to you?
Not at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So John Howard was a sort of Crate Digger's favorite because he had a record in '74 or '75 called "Kid in a Big World," which was a kind of beautiful, kind of Baroque pop, glam rock kind of hybrid sung by an obviously gay young man with an impossibly elegant voice. And it was rediscovered in the early 2000s by, like I say, Crate Diggers. And Darren was really into it, and he played me that stuff, and he said, you'd like that. It's the sort of pop music that you like. So we fast forward around like 2014. By that time, Ian and I had founded Gardenor Records, our label, through the advice of Jer from Where It's At Is Where You Are. So we started with Gardenor Records, and we started to put on these gigs in this club called Servant Jazz Quarters in Dalston.
Yes.
Yeah, and we always wanted to have special things. So what I did was I dug out John Howard's phone number, and I called him in Spain, where he still lives, sort of in exile. And I said, we really like your old record. Do you want to come and play for us? And he was totally excited. I wanted to come play. And I said, well, do you want me to play guitar with you? And he said, yeah, well, that would be great. And then I said, well, what if I put together a band? So I put together this band with Ian on drums and Andy Lewis, who played bass for Paul Weller. Do you know him? He used to be a DJ in the Blow Up Club.
Oh my God. I remember the compilations of Blow Up. Who was this bass player called?
Andy Lewis. So there's Paul Tunkin and Andy Lewis, who were the main people at that club. God, I feel, this is really a brain fog kind of day, because obviously what was the pub in Camden where they would DJ around the Britpop period? They were really influential. Like all of the Britpop bands went to the Blow Up.
Right.
Yeah. And anyway, I knew Andy, and I knew that he was a fan of Andy of John Howard's. And so we ended up playing with John Howard at that gig as his backing band. And it went so well that we decided to make a record together. We'd make songs together. And this turned into John Howard and the Night Mail. Night Mail was my idea because of this W.H. Auden poem, The Night Mail. And I thought the last line, who can bear to see themselves forgotten, totally fit what John was about. And so we made this record. I knew through Stephen Duffy, because I'd become friends with Stephen Duffy as well.
Yes.
I knew about Tapete Records. Or actually, was it through Lloyd Cole? I'm starting to become a bit inconsistent. But yeah, so Tapete Records, German label. Stephen Duffy was on there. Lloyd Cole was on there. I thought, clearly they like their old English musicians.
Yes.
So I wrote to them and said, we made this record with John Howard. Do you want to put it out? And they said, yes. So in 2015, that album came out. I'm really proud of that one. I think it's one of the best records I've been on. And then we toured together and got to know other musicians in Germany. So that would kind of have repercussions for later on, which I'll tell you about later. John didn't feel comfortable with touring, and we just thought, Andy and Ian and I thought we'd take the Night Mail thing further. And then Tapete Records, I know people call them Tapeti or Tapete or whatever, but
Yes.
it's the German word for wallpaper, so it's Tapete. Anyway, so they had their 15-year anniversary at the Lexington, and we ended up being the backing band for Robert Forster, which was really exciting.
The Go-Betweens.
Yeah. And the day after that, we were the backing band for Louis Philippe. You must know Louis Philippe,
Oh,
right?
yes, I've interviewed the boy. Yes.
Well, there you go. L Records. So I knew Philippe from interviewing him in the early 2000s, and we'd become friends because he's obviously also continental around London, who likes his wine.
Yes, he's a sophisticated dude, isn't he?
So it's hard not to become friends with him, and so we kind of, he hadn't played in a while, and we played as his backing band there, and then also decided this has to become a record, and so we made a Louis Philippe and the Night Mail album, and then we made another one last year, which came out last year.
You've been so prolific. Yes, so
Yeah.
The Road to the Sea. God, it's all
That's
there.
it. That's it. Yeah.
God Christ.
The Road to the Sea.
But that, yeah, so your first, but that was, so what happened?
But the one before that was called Thunder Clouds. Yeah.
Thunderclouds.
Yeah,
But
that's
then
a beautiful album.
so with John Howard and the Night Mail,
Yeah.
that was 2015.
Yeah.
So were you working on any other projects going up to 2020 at this stage?
Well, this is very arcane for British ears, but I actually made my first gold record, and probably my last, which is that Andy and I were asked to produce a record for an Austrian legendary artist called Andre Heller. So he's now 79, about to turn it. At the time, he was 70, and he said he wanted to make his last album. And he's a guy who sold millions in Austria and Germany in the 70s and 80s. And because he trusted our taste, he asked us to produce his record, and I worked on this record on and off between 2015 and 2018. I got all the... And what I didn't mention was that I co-founded a festival in Vienna that's still running.
Right.
It's called a Pop Fest, but it's not like an indie pop. It's like a general pop culture event that is 4 days and, tens of thousands of people. But because of Pop Fest, I engaged with all these young Austrian musicians. I curated the first 3 years of it, and I got to know all the young bands that are playing around there because I had to, I had to find out about it. I mean, they were sending me stuff anyway for my radio show, so I knew a lot of interesting musicians, and I thought, when I make this record with this old legend, we're not going to have the pros because there was a budget and everything. We're going to have young musicians who are excited about playing with this guy, and
Yes.
that's what we did. So this was another project, that a long-term project, and it was, like I said, it went gold in Austria. So
what was the
that's
album
certainly
called?
unusual for me.
Well, no, but it's nice. What was the album called?
It's called Spätes Leuchten, like late light.
Oh, wait a minute, late-
Spätes Leuchten.
Yeah,
I will
right,
write it down for you.
I think this is going to definitely help me. See if I can. Late
Yeah.
light. Oh, well, I'm never going to find
Yeah.
this out. Actually, you'll have to send me a link of this. 'Cause,
Yeah, I'm gonna. Can I write a chat here somewhere?
Oh my God, you can write a chat. You can definitely chat.
Where is that?
That's at the bottom in the middle. If you hit chat,
Oh yeah, there. Yeah, exactly.
just write down this album because then I can.
I'll write down the album title. Yes.
Because I've been doing quite well up to now, but then,
You've been doing extremely well.
it's I have to say I'm I'm
Yeah.
quite exhausted. But look, so
I'm sorry about that.
it's like a very interesting narrative that is running in. It's
In
like
all sorts of directions, I know.
it's
Yeah.
like a wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It's like
Yeah.
going all over the shop. But so 2000, right? So 2015, you
To
do John
18. And
Howard.
that came, 2015 is John Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then working on the Andre Heller album
Oh,
while
you
making.
haven't written your message.
I have. I haven't sent it.
Oh,
Okay. There you
that
go.
always
Yeah.
helps. Ah, there you go. I've got it.
No, hang on. I've misspelled it slightly. Yeah. Okay.
Nice. This is quality. People, if anyone gets this far, they'll be like, what are they doing? That's good. I would love to. I'll have to listen to this later. Oh my God, he looks very handsome, doesn't he?
Oh, have you found him?
Yeah, well, the picture of the cover, yes. There you go. Gold. So you got to the gold standard. Well, this is great. You were able to, I don't know, buy some quality stationery with that royalty check.
No,
So
I got paid. I mean that's a good thing.
that was nice. So then, as we trundle into the new decade, 2020, so are you in Canterbury or Austria now?
Well, right now, like I said at the beginning, but I can understand that it's all very confusing.
Yeah,
now I'm in Italy, but I live in at that time. Okay, so I lived in London from 97 to 2004. At that time I had 2 kids already, and as it is, living space in London is too expensive. Moved to Canterbury, which meant that I could travel to London easily.
Right.
But I also moved to Canterbury because I was a fan of the Canterbury scene. Early Soft Machine, Caravan, Hatfield and the North. Always loved all that, So that was part of the romance of moving to Canterbury. Obviously, none of this exists anymore. But yeah, so I lived in Canterbury from 2004 until 2025, and that's the longest I've ever lived in one place, I think.
Yeah, that is amazing. And so project-wise, in this decade, then, what's been sort of particularly happening?
This decade?
Yes.
Yeah, the 20s. The awful 20s.
We're going to have to work on this decade because we can't let it go without some positivity.
No, we've got to. Okay, so I'm bringing you all the way to the present, which is going to be exciting for me. What happened was we had the big pandemic, didn't we, at the beginning of this decade?
Happy days. Jesus.
Yeah, and I had before the pandemic, I'd played with various people and done my records and so on, but then I was thrown back into this situation of having to work on my own, as everyone had to. And there were some fun times. We made a few webcasts like everyone did. But at the end of it, I just felt I want to play in lots of bands with lots of people. So I ended up playing in the early version of Swansea Sound.
Right.
And I ended up playing with Faye Hallam. Do you know Faye Hallam?
No.
She was in a mod band called Making Time in the 80s. And then she was in another one called the Prime Movers. So she was also someone who I idolized as a teenager and ended up playing in a band with. I was very excited about this. But that's a totally different scene. You end up playing, these mod places where actually it's a very different vibe to an indie gig.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine.
But
did you like bands like 9 Below Zero?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I always, I can say this now. I did like the Jam, and I did like the Style Council. again, if we're talking about political pop, that's a weird thing, isn't it? Because I said that I only listened to 60s stuff in the 80s, but the contemporary stuff that I did listen to, I did listen a lot to the Style Council, and so this soul pop sort of thing always appealed to me. I liked soul music anyway, and that sort of Making Time were one of those bands. They were kind of like a more of a soul pop band, you know. I was into my psychedelia as well as that. I always felt like you can say bad things about the mod thing. There's plenty of things about it that are less, that I'm less fond of, like the whole flag waving stuff, which would have at the start been pop art and then
Yes.
became a bit Brexity, with some people, not all of them, you know. Interestingly, not with Paul Weller, but the thing is, we all know that, like, not all people in that subculture are very progressive. Let's put it that way. Some of them are, it's a very mixed sort of scene. But what I've always liked about it is that music taste wise, it opens into soul, it opens into psychedelia, into ska, into a sort of power pop. It's quite a varied, musically varied outlook for a subculture like that, as compared to, I don't know, if you're a rockabilly or a psychobilly or whatever, you have less of a, the spectrum is not as exciting. And that's something that I've always liked about mod culture. It can seem narrow-minded from the outside, but there's actually openings into all sorts of different, even into kinds of folk music. So yeah, so to me it was important when I was a teenager, and it felt interesting coming back to that, like by playing in Faye Hallam's band and playing at these shows.
Yes.
But anyway, so at the same time, I did an indie thing, like playing a few gigs with Swansea Sounds, and then I started to, yeah, I thought, well, now that I've played with these bands, I should I should go back and do a solo album, but ask these people to play with me. So I made this album called Holding Hands in Petropolis, which has got Faye playing a few keyboards. It has Amelia Fletcher singing on it. Obviously, Ian is on it. I'm saying obviously, it's not obvious, but he's
I
almost
know
all
what you
my
mean.
records. Yeah. And yeah, and that was great. And then, no, I really enjoyed making that record, and I felt like that was maybe going to be the last record I make, because we're dealing with, I'm you can't just make records for the sake of it. You want to do something new. And then what happened was that I came across this guy, Kenji, who used to be a singer in this German band, Friedrich Sunlight, who supported us when we played with John Howard and the Night Mail in Germany. And Kenji is the guy who does Glasgow's Pop, the festival in Glasgow
Oh.
every summer.
Are you able just to write his name in that little
I
message?
can write his name, yeah.
Because frankly, that would
Yeah.
be fascinating. So do you
Yeah.
just type
So I
away
write, I type,
and send it?
is Kenji. Yeah,
Kenji.
obviously send it. And he was in Friedrich Sunlight. He was also in Clay Hips. So these are all worth looking up.
Yeah, well,
And
I'm very keen.
he grew up in America, in LA, as a child of Japanese immigrants. And he fell in love with a guy in Germany and moved there. That's how he ended up playing in a German band. And then his husband got a job in Glasgow as an economist. And so he moved there and he started doing this festival called Glasgow's Pop, which is an extremely cool festival every year in the summer. And yeah, what can I say? What can I say? I asked Kenji, you've got such an amazing voice. Why aren't you in bands? I expected when you move to Glasgow, you get to know all these bands. You're going to be in tons of bands the sort of the week you arrive, and none of that happened. He'd been there like for years, and he hadn't been in a band. And I said, you've got to do some singing. You know, when you hear stuff, you will see what I mean.
Yes.
And so we ended up starting to make a record together, and that record then started to involve more people, and it became a real communal effort. Well, I wrote the songs and I played most of the instruments, but then Ian played the drums and played some more instruments. And then we got John Howard to sing on it as well. Ian sang on it. Then I got a Viennese singer-songwriter called The Zoo. I'm typing her down. She's written like that.
Right.
To sing on it as well. And before that, see, I haven't told you that. At the end of the pandemic, I forgot to tell you I made a couple of EPs with Helen McCookerybook. Have you heard of her?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. So yeah, that's...
Yeah, so I made EPs with her, and I played gigs with her. She's a wonderful singer-songwriter. Kind of all the way back to the punk scene where she was in the Chefs. And so I had her sing on the record as well. And this album is coming out on Spin Out Nuggets on the 30th of July. And it's called BOF. Here, I send it to you, Radical Friendship Theory.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this is gonna be it. I think this is probably the most beautiful album that I've made, and it's a proper, you know, it's like I said, it's my songs, but it's a collaborative effort, and it's called that because my daughter, who studied that sort of thing, told me that the way we work together as musicians, kind of helping each other out, is akin to a theory about working practices outside of capitalist trading that is called radical friendship. And I thought, what a nice name for a project.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's coming out soon.
Blimey, you have got... you might have said it. What label is this project?
Spin Out Nuggets.
You did say that.
Spin Out Nuggets. I don't know if you know about them. That's Lee Grimshaw's label, and he's putting out Billy Childish, and so the Medway scene sort of stuff.
Yes.
And Little Storping in the Swaff or Slough was one of the recent ones. They were really good. There's like it's and obviously also Ian and Alan Crockford's band that I mentioned before, the Penrose Web, which I would, urge you to check out.
But yeah, I will.
I'm playing in them live as well.
Well, this is incredible. Because what I see here, this is something of a super group, really, isn't it? This new album coming out with...
It's a bit of a super group, yeah, a bit, yeah.
God, that is incredible. So that comes out in July. We can hear the opening track, Considering, which is available from all the downloads. Yes, and it's
not available from all streaming and download sites. It's just on Bandcamp.
Right.
But then when the album comes out, it's going to be streamable. But I think, this may be interesting for your show because it's an indie show, right? And it's the spirit of C86.
Yes.
And I think now we get to that point where I see people withdrawing a bit from the naked exploitation of the streaming sites, and that aren't built for the likes of us anyway. And so when I talk to the label about how to, nowadays you promote an album by putting out these singles, as they're called, putting out tracks before the album. And sometimes people end up putting out 6 tracks off the album before the whole thing comes out. And Lee from Spin Out Nuggets, he doesn't want to do that. He said, well, just put it on Bandcamp, and then people will order the album. If they want to hear it, they can hear it on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. I think
it's very
right.
cool. And you got the vinyl, which is good. Compact CD or CDs, and digital download, which is all there for you keen kids. Oh, that is just amazing. It's really going to blow our socks off, isn't it, really?
I hope so. It's really nice.
Oh, God,
it's a lovely record.
It's a lovely cover. Who did your cover?
I did it. I paint and draw. Yeah.
Nice.
I've most of the covers, almost all of the covers of those records we were talking about, I did.
You got to be flexible, and you've got to have a lot going on.
You have to, and I think it's, I think again, I'm not a Luddite, but I think there's an appeal to things that are handmade, because there's so much with AI. There's so much that you can just prompt and do. Like,
I haven't really.
So the handmade stuff has a new appeal to it.
God, this is very exciting. So with this, and will you be doing any live dates to promote this little number?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a gig in Vienna on the 31st, where this is interesting. I've got this theatre in Vienna. Well, not I have got it. There's this theatre in Vienna where every summer I'm doing a gig, and people know this. So it's a nice, proper place with seated and everything, and I'm going to play these songs with other people, because the idea is it's not a band; it's a set of songs that can be sung by different people in different cities, and so. Ian's going to be around, but there's going to be local people. Possibly Helen's going to be there. I'm not quite sure yet. And then we're going to play it in London on the 11th of October at the Betsy Trotwood. And I think probably, hopefully, Kenji's going to be there, and Ian and Helen, but also other people. And I'm going to do it in Hamburg in September, again with other people. So this is a way of dealing with the fact that it's awfully expensive to move people and gear around. And the idea of radical friendship theory anyway is that, you've got friends here and there. And I told you about this. I told you about all the bands that I've played in.
Yes.
So there's people, we're definitely going to do one in Paris, where I expect someone like Olivier Popincourt would play, maybe Rocabois. I don't know. So there's these people in different towns that and you've played with, and in a way, I think this album could be kind of a vehicle, like songs that you share among your community of fellow musicians.
It's a beautiful. It's a
nice idea, isn't it? Yeah.
I think this is the way forward as we all sort of trundle through our lives. But this is fantastic, actually. God, it's been an amazing educational hour.
Sorry if it was too much.
No, I've just got a lot now to go and look and do more research on. I have to say, this has been added, and I'm so pleased the connection. I know we had a little moment there, but it was only brief. Thank God it wasn't repeated. But that's just fantastic. So, is there any other projects you've got? Did you say you're writing a book?
I'm writing a book. Yeah, on pop fascism, but I don't want to say too much about it.
No, God, don't jinx it.
Yeah,
and but yeah, you do.
And then I always have to, in order to make a living, I have to do a lot of. You have to. We all do, don't we? We all have to work. But yeah, that book is a big thing now for me on my mind, and making this record happen. Trying to play it in different cities. That's the other idea.
That will be the other. Well, I think you should go. Hopefully, you'll be in London for one of these shows.
Yeah, yeah. So the 11th of October, as I said, at the Betsy, it would be a good place to see it.
Yeah, well, actually, I was just looking. It's quite an easy one to get to, actually, from where I
Yeah,
live.
yeah. Well, the Betsy's has become kind of home from home. I've played there so many times. It's tiny, but it's brilliant. Raz, the guy who runs it, really likes his music. You get served at the bar by a guy from the Hanging Stars, uh, who's Patrick, who used to be in White Sea, also on the AED label. So it's all family, really.
Yeah, so that's all very interesting. But look,
The last record I should mention is Kieran Phelan and the Peace Signs' new album, because I'm playing bass on that, and it's coming out soon as well. I think mid-August. I'll
nice.
write that down as well for you. But
Yeah,
that's a lovely record too.
you mentioned Hullabaloo. So,
Yes, that's the one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That is very good. I don't know what's gone on, but my screen has become very peculiar in the last few minutes.
How does your screen? How's it peculiar?
Well, luckily it's not the computer, it's this bigger screen, and it's just got all these lines going across it as if it's having a bit of a meltdown.
Well, maybe
Oh,
because it's so hot.
it might be
Yeah.
so hot. I might say goodbye.
Yeah, do say goodbye. Maybe you can tighten up the beginning a little bit. I think I was talking a little bit too much there about Beatles records when we were kids.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah. Oh, no, that's fine. But look, I'll let you go because I'm a little bit worried about my
do
computer.
let me go. Yes.
Do let you go. But look, take care, and I will.
And you take care.
Yeah, and I will see what's wrong with my computer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
take
hope it
care.
saves everything fine.
I know, this is true, actually.
Yeah.
But the computer looks okay. Okay, take
Okay.
care.
Take
See you
care.
later.
Lovely
Bye-bye.
to speak to you.
Yeah,
Bye.
lovely. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was me in conversation with Robert Rotifer, talking about his life in music. This has been the C86 show. David Eastaugh. Have a great week. Stay safe.